The first two things we will want to automate are silicon and plastic. We can start with the more streamlined one, silicon, which can easily be produced with a simple chain of machines with no input at all. The first part of this chain is rather easy, so we can just skip to the last step. The issue with that step is that an addition of magnesium is required. It will be given back in form of magnesia, which has to be sorted out from silicon and electrolyzed to get magnesium back. To sort apart those items, we can use drawers or barrels and lock the item we want to sort out. Once we have isolated the dust we want to reprocess, we can use conveyors to import it inside our electrolyzer. With that, we have finished the logistic part of producing silicon. Now let's see the power part. The main power sink here is the arc furnace with its 3 amps of MV power. However, that consumption will last just 1 second and will yield 2 outputs. This will cause an interesting effect which we will be using, but I do not advise. When a machine runs out of power, it will halt for a little bit and fill up its internal buffer before trying again. And this recipe is quick enough to be run even without appropriate power source. Furthermore, this machine is not going to work constantly, but it's going to have to wait for the slower ones in this chain. Which means it's going to use a constant average of 32 EU per tick. That doesn't mean it can be powered with LV power, but it allows us to power everything in this chain with just a single MV turbine. Finally, we add 2 more chemical reactors to refine our silicon to solar grade. Next we have to make polyethylene. The main issue here is deciding in which way. We can either set up a new farm for the plant way or set up a pump and refine some oil. The plant way is more renewable, but oil is more didactically interesting, so we will be seeing the oil way. After setting up a pump over a deposit, we move the oil to our base using a long-distance fluid pipeline. The first step will be to distill our oil, and here we already start to get lost between all of the recipes in the distillery page. A better way to deal with all of those recipes is to instead look at the distillation tower recipes. While we can't craft that machine yet, the outputs are in most of the cases the same. The circuit required in the distillery represents the layer at which the fluid will come out of the tower. And yes, by using a single block, we will be losing all of the fluids outside of the chosen one. The issue is now deciding which fluid we want to keep. And things quickly get convoluted because, to make plastic, each one of those fluids can be worked in a slightly different way to get different ratios in a second distillation process. Anyways, we start by moving the oil into a distillery and then we select one fluid. This fluid will have some sulfur impurities which must be removed with the help of some hydrogen in a chemical reactor. The main issue here is that one of the 2 fluids must be provided through cells. To help with that, we can use some Gregtech tanks. We pump in the fluid, add some cells and then apply a conveyor belt to move the filled cells. This particular recipe will output 2 differently filled cells. For now, we have to either manually manage those or use the drawer trick. The next step is similar but easier to loop, since it consists of just moving back and forth a cell to refill it. As before, we will have a tank to refill the cells which are then pushed into the adjacent chemical reactor with a conveyor belt. But this time, we will also have a conveyor on the reactor to push back empty cells. However, those conveyors will block each other, unless we select the allow input setting. And with that, we have severely cracked the refinery gas, one of the 12 different routes of making ethylene from oil. Finally, we add oxygen to obtain polyethylene. This process uses a little bit of hydrogen and a huge amount of oxygen. To get the hydrogen, we are electrolyzing water. And while this process makes some oxygen too, it's far from our requirements. The easiest way to make all of that oxygen is to just use the waste one from our silicon processing. One other thing you could want to automate is ore processing. Here we have an example of that made using steam and logistic pipes. Let's see how it works. In this test, we drop all of the minerals we dig. If those are already sorted out, they will be moved to the machine we have designed for the next processing step. In this example, we are setting the destination filters with item sync modules and extracting materials from the outputs with unfiltered extractor modules. Every time we will be inserting a new ore, it will stick in the starting test. That will be the signal that we have to decide how to process it. To do that, we can use any bookmarks to mark the path we decide. Then we apply those bookmarks to the cards of the correct machines. Another thing is that until we get into HV, we can get the useful byproduct of the HV macerator. So we should be careful of what we process until then. On the opposite side, sometimes some useless product processing is going to clog things up. To speed up things and save some energy, we can use some different machines. To finish off, I'd like to remind you that you can quickly restrict flow direction of a long segment of pipes by setting the wrench in line mode by crouching and clicking on air. And for today, that's it. Bye bye!